Welcome, everyone, to the Illuminated Mind podcast. I'm Matthew Brownstein, founder and lead instructor at the Institute of Interpersonal Hypnotherapy. And I'm here with a wonderfully unique person today, Dr. Scholar Lee. Thank you for joining me here.
Thank you, Matt. I am greatly, humbly appreciative.
Yeah, I'm thrilled. I was on your podcast and just enjoyed getting to know you so much as a person. I said, I want you here on our podcast. So here's a little bit from your LinkedIn profile. Dr.
Mhm.
Scholar Lee finds himself as a Black man of trans experience. You have your Bachelor of Arts in Psychology with a concentration on legal studies. You obtained your Master's of Science in Management and Organizational Leadership and a Master's of Philosophy. And currently, you're a PhD candidate for the Human and Social Services program at Walden University, completing your dissertation on the characteristics of trans-affirming parenting, in which you receive your doctorate in philosophy by the end of 2022. Your bio is impressive, but instead of reading all of that, let's just jump in. Why don't you just tell us about who you are? What's the essence of Dr. Scholar Lee?
Born and raised in New Haven, Connecticut, currently residing in Atlanta, Georgia. I am happily married with three beautiful children. One has four legs. His name's Max. He's 5 years old. And I have a 6-year-old daughter, and I have a 16-year-old son. He'll be 16 in a couple of weeks. So I'm very family oriented. I'm also a very spiritual, and I am a life coach for transgender and non-conforming youth and families with the intent to create healthy bonds, so that way the our gender variant children or youth can have healthy transitions, affirming, supportive, and loving transitions. So, in a nutshell, that's pretty much me. I am the podcast host of the Dr. Scholarly Experience, and pretty much that's where I share my truth. Because I am the truth seeker, the truth speaker, and I serve in my truth. So I share my journeys, my ideologies, and philosophies on how I navigate this binary world as a double minority, as a gender minority, and as a Black person. That's pretty much what I do, and I also have a specific docu series called Gendered on that podcast, in which I talk about affirming the identities of the transgender and non-conforming community, and I have individuals of that community share their lived experiences, as well as professionals who serve us share how they create affirming environments and service. So that's pretty much yeah, that's it. As far as my mission, Dr. Scholarly's mission is to educate, elevate, enlighten, and empower everyone to evolve to a greater version of themselves.
Nice. I love it. Your heart is so in the right place. And there's something in your website I wanted us to dive into related to everything you were just saying. It says change does not start with him, her, or they, and or them. Change starts with you. So when I was on your show, we talked about pronouns, and I said, "Is it okay that I don't really know my pronouns?" And you're like, "Yeah, that's cool." And Yeah, so how is it not so much about pronouns based on what's on your website, but how change begins with you?
Mm-hmm. Yes. So, like me, when people ask me what my pronouns are, I say my pronouns are me, myself, and I. And they're kind of thrown off with a whirlwind because, this world likes to be so grammatically correct, but my life isn't grammatically correct. So, but with that being said, I choose those specific pronouns because that's how I live my life. All the way down to when I get paid, for an example. Let's say I get a check, I'm paying me first, and then everything else, follows. And when it just, as far as how I live my life being me, and I learn about myself, and I'm okay being by myself, and I am me anywhere I bring. So it's an evolving cycle. Who I am is me, and me is okay being myself. I bring myself into any environment in which I walk into. So I align with those pronouns every day because that's my everyday doing. It keeps me core with who I am compared to me trying to be him, her, or them. It's taken away from me to some sort of extent because because there's more to me than being him or being her or being them. So that's why I use those specific pronouns, but I do not mind masculine centered or neutral pronouns, or whether you want to say they, them, or he, him. But the core essence of me is, around those pronouns. So when I talk about change, it doesn't start with him, it doesn't start with her or them, it starts with you. And I want people to have an understanding to that, because people are looking outside of themselves for a change. And when it comes to your life, you have to take authority. You have to be the driver in your vehicle. You can't allow him to drive your car, right? You can't allow her to drive your car. Because guess what? If they crash it, I mean, I'm just generally, figuratively speaking, who's liable? You. So when you're talking about the change in your life, you have to have the audacity to say, you know what, this is what I desire, this is what I deserve, and this is what I'm going to do, right? The three D's, okay? So, what you desire is what you deserve. And what are you going to do to experience that desire in which you deserve the experience? So that all has to do with you. That shouldn't be associated with or based on or rooted from someone else's way of becoming in way of being and becoming in this world. It should all be, what do you want? What makes you happy? How do you want to wake up in the morning? What type of love do you want to surround yourself by? What type of love do you want to have for yourself? When you look in the mirror, who do you want to see? Do you want to see somebody who admires and adores the person in the mirror? When you hold your heart, are you holding your heart with care? Are you, nurturing yourself, loving yourself, showing compassion for yourself? You have to do that, not him, not her, not them. Because when they don't exist, when he is not around, when she is not available, who are you going to rely on? You, I hope. So, yeah.
Yeah, I love the pointing back to the self. All my
Mhm.
background in spiritual studies, it's just really, who are you? Who are you?
Right.
And you use the
Mhm.
word audacity. And every so often you come across somebody like Dr. Scholarly here who's just such a wordsmith. He has such a beautiful way with words. And you said something, and it's really rare that I write down what somebody else says. So I'm like, hey, that was a good quote. But since you used the word audacity here, I wrote down, and it's like in my notes of like key things I've heard in my life. Your statement was, do you have the audacity to live up to God's capacity for you? It's such a powerful statement. Do you have the
Mhm.
audacity to live up to God's capacity for you? Can you elaborate on that? What does that mean to you?
Yeah. So I like to say, I use Jesus, what Jesus said when he was getting crucified, according to the Holy Bible, the King James Version. And I'm not a biblical scholar, great people, but I like to use examples. So he said, "Forgive them, Father, for what they don't." And I had to internalize that. I had to forgive me for what I didn't know, which was my worth, which was my value, which was I didn't have a healthy love for myself. I didn't even have worth. Okay, so and this whole time I'm trauma bonding. I'm building a relationship with pain instead of building a relationship with my energy, my inner God. So that was just a toxic mess, and I had to not forgive the people that caused pain, because they caused pain for the simple fact that I allowed them to do so. So I had to take authority, I had to take accountability, and I had to forgive myself, which was a humbling experience. Because when you take ownership over your life and when you take accountability, you have to really sit down and say, okay, this happened. Yes, this person did this, but why did they do it? It's because I allowed them to. Okay. And that was hard to know that the treatment that I was receiving was treatment that I allowed people to do to me. So when I made the decision to transition from one gender to the next, it was a spiritual quest for me, if anything. The physical part, that was rewarding, of course, but the internal, mental, emotional um, build trials that I had to experience were so humbling but healthy for me. It was my first smell of liberation, is the best way I could describe it. So it built the God in me. And like I like to tell people, we are all God. And if you want to break it down, the G is for your gifts. Are you not gifted? What gifts do you have? The O is the omnipotence in which you bestow. You are powerful. And the D is to be disciplined and dominant in your life. That is what God is. That is who I am. So I don't have fears of aligning myself with the God in me and allowing that God in me to co-create with the God universe. Okay, because I know there is a higher source and a higher power than me, but that power created me, so I have some of that power too. All right, so I take ownership of my omnipotence, and I remain disciplined in my purpose. I remain disciplined in my truth, and I remain dominant in my life. I am the only one who has the number one seat in my life. I'm not exchanging that seat for nobody. So, but and with me transitioning and me choosing this path, I didn't choose the path that many follow, right? And I didn't choose the narrow path. I chose to create my own path. And that is why I said, I had the audacity to live up to God's capacity, because the vision God has for me is bigger than the vision I have for myself. But I have the audacity to say, you know what, I deserve that vision that God has for me, because my vision might be a little tainted, right? From whatever experiences. I might desire a mansion, but my divine is saying, you know what, you might want a mansion, but you're gonna have a village, you're gonna have an island, or you're gonna have, more, so you can give more, so you can do more. And that is who I'm aligning with. I'm aligning, but at first I had to, build that relationship with my inner God, because I can't co-create with a higher source, and I'm not going to put all my responsibility on God and pray for God to bless me when I'm not prepared for the blessing. So I have to have the audacity to want to live up to God's capacity. I got to meet him halfway. Because if I don't meet him halfway, then how am I even going to be available or vulnerable to be open to receive the blessing? Because God could give it to me, Source could give it to me, Universe can give it to me. However, people want to, align this power, this unknown source to, you can't receive it. You could lose it just like that if you're not prepared. If you're not asking, like I tell people, don't ask to obtain. You want to obtain the blessing, but you need to ask you need to pray to be the being you need to be to maintain the blessing and sustain the blessing. I don't want to just obtain it. That's easy. But maintaining and sustaining is a whole different thing. If I'm going to build this empire, I need to have the tools, and I need to have the mindset, and I need to have the healthy spirit, or be this healthy being to maintain and sustain this, what I have obtained. So if you're not completing the prayer, then yes, you will obtain millions of dollars, but you can also lose it too. And then what? So yeah,
You can gain the whole world, but lose your soul. And
lose your
what's the
soul.
point in that, right? I
Exactly.
love hearing your story. It's so inspiring. And I hear you are vulnerable enough. You have the audacity to say, I'm not going to just conform to what I think I should be. I'm going to
Mhm.
be all that God can imagine me to be, or who I really, really am. And you
Mhm.
mentioned forgiveness being such an important part of that process. Could you
Mhm.
elaborate more on what was it like when you started realizing, if I'm going to make these changes, if I'm going to actualize my fullest potential, why did you need to start with self-forgiveness?
I had to forgive myself because I didn't want to carry these burdens into my life. I had to choose, right? I feel like there's two types of people: people who are burdens and people who are blessings. And I wanted to be a blessing to me. I didn't want to be a burden to me anymore. So I had to forgive myself for things that I allowed. I had to forgive myself for the lack of self love. I had to forgive myself for allowing people to hold primary positions over me and not make myself a priority, or the priority, I should say. So that's what I mean by forgiveness and forgiving myself, because it was necessary for me to ascend, for me to transcend, for me to transform into the divine being that God placed me here on this earth to be, for not just me or my family, but for the world to enjoy. And what does that being look like? And what do I need to do to be humble, right? You say, Jesus had to go out for 40 days and 40 nights. Well, that's what I had to do, so to speak. I had to walk in the darkness. So darkness to me was acknowledging my shadows, not so much trying to get rid of it, but saying these my shadow exists and there's a light side of me too. And if I blend them together, what beautiful creation does it make? You know, it's like an artist that's making something or painting something. They're using various colors to give this message or to give this vision. So I wasn't trying to get rid of anything, but I was trying to acknowledge more of myself and accept myself as well in the process, because that is what I needed to do to be a healthy being for myself so I can be healthy for people who need me for whatever enlightenment that is needed. So to forgive myself, that's what it pretty much it was just part of the process. It was a necessary process. It wasn't a process that had to be skipped. And that's why healing can be sought out to be. And I say sought out because it's really not a painful experience, and it's not painful at all. It's more so humbling. It's actually healing, and it's enlightening at the same time because I just I learned from life instead of be a victim of it. And when I took the victim out of anything, I took the victim out of life. Okay, I got rid of that real quick, and once I became enlightened, I got rid of the victim and I was this victor, and I nurtured the victim in me because how my victim mentality or feelings were or ways of being, it was valid, of course, but it didn't need to exist anymore, because it was doing too much damage. It was limiting me and preventing me from seeing my full potential, from tapping into my full potential, and for having the audacity to live up to God's capacity. So I had to do necessary work. I really had to sit myself down and learn myself, be still, and just not feel I always have to be on the go or do things or have to prove myself to God. I didn't have to prove myself to my to the divine. I didn't have to prove myself to the Most High, my higher self. I had to be still for a while, and I had to reflect. And that reflection wasn't meant on what people did to me; is what I was doing to myself. How am I seeing myself? How am I loving myself? And what am I going to do to heal myself? What toxic behaviors are I'm willing to get rid of? What toxic mindset am I willing to let go? What, and what am I going to replace that with? Walking out in nature instead of going out to the clubs, or maybe instead of going out to the clubs, I like playing pool. I'm not great at it, but doing healthier recreational activities. Reading. I always was a scholar by heart because I love to learn. And I think that's the best asset I have because I'm more so taking explorative lens or approach to life than more so this conforming way of being. Because to me, when you conform in life, you're playing safe. And you're not here to play safe. You weren't here to follow other people's ways of being. You were here to explore your own way of being and create your the person that you desire to be for this world, because your life is bigger than you. When you leave, you still want people to know you exist. You still want to leave a legacy. You still want to leave something that people can thrive and build their empires off of. And when it comes to me passing, when I transition, I want to be able to look God in the face and say, I did my best. I did what you sent me here to do. And that's when judgment is to me. I don't want God to say, I bless you with this life. What did you make of it? And all I could give him is a bunch of degrees on the wall. He's like, or they're like, no, that's not what I sent you there to do. So, yeah, I hope I answered your
question. Well, I'm sure everything you said was beneficial for the listener. So you answered my question in many amazing ways. I'm really curious about when you talk about your process, your transition, the trans theme. You also reference that very synonymously with words like enlightenment or ascension or liberation. I think anybody, whether they identify as trans or just going through a spiritual process, going through an awakening, yet there's the idea of, you might call it the human self, that is that which is transitioning, transforming, growing, healing, blossoming. But a lot of people might just call that personal growth. You seem to, as I do, make that very intimately connected with spiritual growth. How have you found that your transition has actually been a deeply spiritual process?
So my transition was spiritual because ever since I use five because and it could have been three, but ever since I can remember, since I was a child, a very young child, I knew spiritually, and this is where intelligence comes from, because my inner self was telling me this is who I am. And but what I was seeing and what I was taught from the programming that society has put on placed upon me, that's not what was being told to me. They said if I have these body parts, or if I look like this, then this is what I am. If a cow has, if this is what cows look like, this is what apples look like. So here I am. I'm like, okay, well, I have these feelings though inside myself that are not in alignment with what you're saying, how this gender is supposed to feel. So the whole time I'm neglecting this internal connection that came to me. And was trying to build with me. I was rejecting it because what I'm being taught is this, but I'm following these rules, and it's creating this pain. It's creating this internal conflict within my system. It's like me trying to take an iMac and put it in a Lenovo. The system won't operate efficiently, right? So that's what I was going to. I was trying to take this programming and fit it in my system, but it was not aligning. So this whole time, from my childhood to the age of 30, I'm sitting here like, I'm like, what's going on? Until I was enlightened to this community, and I'm like, okay, I felt so affirmed. And immediately I was like, this is what I need to do. I wasn't hesitant. I always had a rebellious spirit about myself. Now, even in my youthful years, well, I'm still youthful. I'm 35, but before my transition, I I still dress masculine. I wasn't the type to wear heels and lipstick and date guys or anything. I've always been what society likes to say, a tomboy. So I was always masculine centered, and that's how I appeared. So, and I would constantly get mistaken as I was, always he. I'm sorry, she. I always got that, going on. But so when it came to my transition and transitioning, now when I made the decision, it became a spiritual class because yes, I knew I was going to obtain the physical appearance, but that's where it goes back to maintaining and sustaining. I needed to have the mindset, and I needed to obtain the emotional intelligence required for me to have a healthy transition and not experience a transition that society likes to portray to the public and stigmatize when it comes to my community. So um, it became spiritual because I had to look inside myself. I started had to take authority over my life and started putting my own definition behind these labels that were placed upon me. Like I said, if the shoe fits, I'll wear it. Okay, I don't, I don't really like saying transgender. I like to say I am an affirming gender, because I'm a gender that is affirming to me. So, and whatever that will be for the day, it can be interchangeable. But getting off topic here. So it was spiritual because I needed to rebuild the emotional health that I needed for me to have the transition that I desired to have. So I wasn't just a man that you see, but I was broken inside. I didn't want to be spiritually broken, and I had to dissect the relationships that I had, and I had to redefine what masculinity meant to me. What type of father do I want to be in my children's life? What type of man do I want my daughter to love? Because I had an understanding that, you know what, the first relationship that my daughter's going to have with the male is with me. And what do I want that relationship to be? Because she's going to base every relationship off of this relationship when it comes to the opposite gender. So I need her to know that if daddy treats me this way, I this is the baseline. Okay. So but in order for daddy to treat my her this way, in order for me to be the father I need to be for her, I had to be the man I needed to be for me. I had to give myself that love first. And parents can love their child, but if you don't love you, you can't love your child the way that they're supposed to be loved. And that's where this karmic cycle comes in, or this trauma bonding, or these unnecessary pains are being created, and it's hard to let go because we're not building this love of self. It would amaze me when parents would say, I love my child more than I love me." It's very interesting. And I ask, well, how? You know, I love me above all. I don't love my children more than me. Because if I love my children more than me, then how can I love them in a healthy way? That's how I see it. I don't think I can. I don't love my wife more than me. I have to love me more than me. If anything, because if I have that love of self, then I can have the love. I can share that same love of self with the world, with my children, with my wife, with my dog. Okay, I could share that love that I have for myself. It's exchanged. But if I don't have a healthy love of self, then what am I exchanging with you? Unhealthy love, a love that's tainted, a love that can create pain or create a trauma subconsciously,
Hmm.
because the love of myself is not healthy. So it was a spiritual quest, and it continues to be a spiritual quest for me, my transformation, because I have an understanding that, you know what, life is transforming. We as beings, the world evolves. So evolution roots from what? Transformation, change. So me being transgendered is honestly part of life. It's part of the game. It's part of this experience, excuse me, that we're having. So it's nothing. It's not this big thing people are making it to be. It's just part of life. Did we make a big deal that I went from a baby to this fully developed being? We didn't. So what is the difference for me moving from one gender to the next gender? Honestly, it's a privilege to me because now I could be more compassionate because I have an understanding. I have personal experience on what a woman will goes through as far as biologically, mentally, emotionally. I can understand those thoughts. At the same time, I can show compassion to a male who's going through certain things. Because if I get pulled over by the cops, I have the same fears of going to jail. The jail system is not meant for me, it's not prepared for me or equipped for me. And when you see me, you're seeing me as a black man. So I'm still open to those stigmas and whatever perspective that law enforcement or certain people have against black men. And if they find out I'm trans, then you can forget about it. Okay. So I still have these things, or I'm still eligible to experience those kind of experience. But when I take authority over my life and my mind, I don't allow those fears to taint what I desire and deserve. What do I desire? I can't focus my life on fear, on what if or what is possible to happen, because I'll be psychotic. I'll be living my life in fear. I barely want to step outside into the world. I probably would be scared to go to the grocery store just for the simple fact I'm thinking about getting pulled over by the cops. Like, really? No, I can't do that. That's not what God put me here to do. And that's where having the audacity to live up to God's capacity, because at the end of the day, the love that I have for myself, my internal relationship will be exemplified in the relationships that I have in my life, from the relationships with my family. I mean, from with my wife, my family, my children will be all reflections of the love that I have for myself. The relationships I have with my business partners will be spiritual because I'm not trying to have a relationship based off money. I need to make sure we're spiritually connected here because I need to understand what your core values are. And I know, and if our core values align, then I know we'll be prosperous. I'm not worrying about that because we have integrity. We value integrity. We value self-respect. We have a love for ourselves. So when you have a love for yourself, you have a self-respect. You're not focused on how to con somebody or disrespect somebody or anything. If anything, I'm not going to have a argument with you. I'm just going to speak my truth respectfully. I'll listen to your truth, and we can either come to a compromise instead of trying to prove each other's truths wrong. I think that's a waste of my time, both of our times. So I'm not going to do that. I could be respectful and listen to what you're saying, and I could respectfully disagree, if so be it. And it's not saying because I disagree, you're not what you're saying is wrong. No, it's just saying that your truth is being communicated, but my truth is not aligning with it, and that's okay. And I can humbly disagree, you know? So I say all this to say is that it's been a spiritual quest because it's giving me an understanding of life, which is allowing me to obtain an inner knowing of who I am and who I need to become. So I can and overstand my purpose, overstand my value, overstand my worth, and have an in-depth understanding of my truth. Because that's the only thing I will understand is my truth, not people, not the world. I'm not here to understand that. I'm here to understand that. I'm here to understand my truth, and basically that's yeah.
Beautifully said. Yeah, our
Thank you.
school is largely about self-realization, getting to know who you really are. Yet so much more, it's about self-actualization. As I hear you speaking, it's not you're not just someone who knows who you are and was willing to unfold, like I think even on your website, you talk about like the caterpillar into the butterfly type of idea.
Yeah,
You were willing to go through your transformation to become so much greater than what you where you started, or like your true self was always there, you just allowed it to unfold. What I hear that's so valuable, I came to this in my realizations, it is always about other people. We don't have enlightenment in isolation. There's no such thing as salvation as an individual. When you get a sense that we really are all one, or at least you're interacting with people all the time, right? And who you are
yeah,
absolutely affects other people. So I'd love to hear you elaborate more on relationships. I mean, we are interpersonal hypnotherapy. It really speaks to my realization that it's not just transpersonal, it's not just ascending and enlightening oneself. It's about how we interact with others because we're here to help to liberate others as well, right? And you do a lot of work in your community and people you teach, I guess, based on how to raise children with this type of mindset. So as you mentioned your kids, I'd love to hear more about how does this more self-actualized way of being bless those in your life, especially how you raise a child.
yeah. So it helps so much when you have this self-actualization because then I feel you can allow your child to explore themselves instead of conforming your child to abide by these societal practicums, systems, or this systematic way of being. You're not meant to follow a system. If anything, you're meant to create your own system. Okay, create, create, create. When you're telling me that I was created by the creator, then that means I have a creative ability about myself because that's my origin. So when I have this self actualization, and which when we use the Maslow's hierarchy, right, that's the pinnacle is self actualization. So if I obtain that, then man, I can allow my child to say, dad, or my daughter could come to me and say, dad, I like this girl. You know, I think she's cute, and what have you. And I say, yeah, she's cute. And I could be like, yeah, she's cute. Yeah, so why don't you tell her that she's cute? I'm not gonna be like, no, don't talk like that. Don't do this. Or if my daughter wants to just wear sweatpants and dye her hair green, I'll be like, you know what? That's great. Not my cup of tea, but it's yours. And I'm willing to explore that experience with you. I want her to be like, I could go to my dad for anything. And it's not from this spoiled mindset. It's from I could communicate to my dad about anything. And that's the type of parent I wanted to be. I wanted to be that parent, or I want to be that husband, or I want to be that person that people could say, you know what, Dr. Scholarly, he doesn't judge. I could say, what, I really did have this thought of anger. I really wanted to harm this person, but I didn't. And Dr. Scholarly said, you know what, that's okay that you felt that, but can we take a healthier approach to because when you harm people, you're really harming yourself,
Mhm.
and that's how I see it. If I am judging someone for being transgendered, if I'm judging someone for being white, if I'm judging someone for being black, if I'm judging someone for just being different than me, then there's some differences about myself internally that I am neglecting, I
Mhm.
am rejecting, I am resisting. So it's just you're just portraying a transference of emotions, is what they like to call it in psychology. You're transferring your personal emotions on what you have not accepted or acknowledged, and you're bringing that over here. And it's the same thing with when I had said I held on to pain. And when I held on to that pain, where was I bringing it? I was bringing that pain with me into my friendships. I was bringing that pain into me, with me into my relationships, into the relationships with, into the world. I was bringing that pain. So if I'm bringing pain with me into these new experiences, then what do you think the outcome's going to be? A painful one.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to let go of that. So when it comes to self-actualization and my relationships with, my children, I, because I am taking an explorative approach to life, and it's so much freer. I don't have these rules. If anything, I'm creating rules that are more liberating, that are not, feeling like I have to live in this box. Because I'm not a contortionist, okay? I can't fit in nobody's box. I'm too much of an infinite being. I'm too grand for that. So, I keep the boxes for the people who have a simple mindset, a simple way of being, I should say. But my self-actualization grants me the permission to build a liberating, a healthy relationship with my children. Because children love to explore life. They have so many questions. They're very inquisitive. And that's the approach I take for life. Why are the trees green? Something simple like that. Or why is green green? Who named it green? All right, somebody said, you know what, that color is green. Well, what led them to that conclusion? That's what I'm constantly asking questions. But even as a child, that's how I was. And I was told, oh, you ask too many questions. So if you're telling the kids they're asking too many questions and you send them to school and you're wondering why they're failing, it's because they're scared to ask questions. Questions that you are limiting them to ask. Oh, you talk too much. She's always asking questions. Listen, let my daughter be great. Let her ask all the questions. Sometimes do I feel like answering the questions? No. We all have emotional days or draining days or days where we're just, just need to be at ease point or whatever it is. But I answered it because I have an understanding and I know that she's yearning for knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
And she really is trying to understand this life. Why, when I go to school, I have to go in this bathroom and not this bathroom? How do you explain that to your child? Oh, because the symbol's up there. And they're going to know, well, why is that symbol up there?
Mm-hmm.
Who created the symbol? It's a valid question, but you get frustrated because it's a question you can't answer.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the day, instead of getting frustrated with the child, why don't you explore why the symbol's up there? So you can give an answer. I'm okay saying I don't know the answer, but I'll find out. And I feel we all have to be scholars of life. I define scholar to be a success, having compassion, being humble, having the heart of love, showing yourself acts of heart. Because when you do that, it's easy to love other people. Being outstanding, being observant, being obedient to your purpose, loving life, learning from life, and being a leader of your life, being authentic, being affirming, and being respectful, being resourceful. That's what a scholar is to me. It's not this astute being that has a 4.9 or what all these little accolades. I could give two craps about that, honestly. I want to be a scholar of life. And how do I be that? I need to take my pen and pad and I need to explore life. I need to research life. And what conclusions or what results am I getting from this exploration, from me observing, from the things that I'm deciding to do? What am I creating? And I'm taking notes, and maybe I want to do something different the next day, or maybe I want to do something different the next year or the next month or whatever it is. I'm taking this explorative approach, and it's eliminating fear because in my mind, I'm learning. I'm not trying to be safe with life. I'm just learning life, and it has nothing to do with failure. It's all outcomes. What are you creating? You're not failing. You made a decision, and that decision created this outcome. That's all. It's not a failure. It's okay. Well, I won't make that decision again, if anything.
Mm-hmm.
Right? because I know what outcome is going to come of it. So I'm going to make a different decision and not be scared of the unknown. Embrace it, embody it, you know. And when you have that self actualization, it builds a trust within yourself. That's what self actualization is to me. It's being vulnerable to trust me. And if I could trust me, then I can allow my child will trust themselves more. And, you know, my children will trust themselves more because they have a parent who models that, who exemplifies that, and who empowers them to explore life. You
Mhm.
know, I'm not going to tell my son that he has to date girls or, hey, did you talk to any girls yet? No, if anything, I'm going to say, do you have any people of interest?
Mhm.
Not going to put a specific gender behind it. Do
Mhm.
you have anybody you're interested in? You know, or I don't need to have that conversation with him. Maybe they just bring somebody home. Maybe they might bring John home on Monday and you know Janet home on Friday, and I'll embrace both of them the same way.
Mhm.
I'm not going to say, oh, well, you know, you're supposed to be with this one, not that one. No, explore life. If you want to have multiple partners, be safe. Okay. That's just just be safe about it. You
Mhm.
know, that's it. I'm not going to say or condemn them or tell them that that's wrong and they shouldn't do that because then what am I doing? I'm tainting that relationship. And that's something that I did with my parents. You know, my parents exposed me to toxic behavior, but they loved me the best they can. But because I held on to pain, it allowed me it limited my relationships that I desired to have with my parents to
Mhm.
some extent. You know, both of them created some form of trauma in my life, but I held on to that trauma instead of letting it go. And I had to forgive myself for that. I didn't have to forgive them for the experience. I had to accept them for who they are and where they are in their life.
Mhm.
I had to forgive myself for holding on to the pain. And when I had let go of the pain, I was now able to build a healthy relationship with my parents because I accepted them. I
Mhm.
accept people. I'm not here to forgive people. I'm not here to tell people how to live their lives. I'm here to accept people for who they are, affirm them for how they want to be affirmed, and learn from them. If I know I'm a person who walks straight and I accept this person for moving crooked, then the painful experience won't occur really. You know, the chances of me being pained it won't really happen. That's why knowledge is power because it's the knowing. I know you move crooked, so when I move straight, I'm not going to be disappointed.
Mhm.
I'm not going to have this expectation of you moving straight with me because I know you move crooked. Okay,
Mhm.
I know. You know, like my grandma would say, if I I'll accept a thief for being a thief. I don't need to mistreat them for being a thief.
Mhm.
I just know not to leave my purse around the thief.
Mhm.
I'm not gonna not welcome them in my home. I'm not gonna not treat them with respect. No, I'll respect them. I'll treat them like a decent human being. I just know that they're capable of certain things. So I'm not gonna encourage those certain things to occur around me at least.
Mhm.
So that's why it's essential to have an inner knowing because knowledge is powerful if you allow it to be, but knowledge can also be ignorant if you choose for it to be. Because what people know about me from before, they knew the gender that was placed on me at birth. So that knowledge, that knowing, allows them to be ignorant. So when they see me, it'll be, oh, you know, they're calling me by the name that I don't prefer, or they're using pronouns that I don't align with, and they're ignorant with the knowledge.
Mhm.
So you have to choose what you want to be. Some people, I see society being, it's easy for them to live and be. That's why I call them conforming caterpillars because it's easy for them to allow people to make decisions for them because I can blame them for the outcome
Mhm.
if it doesn't favor me. But if you gain authority, you know, it's like what they say: when much is given, much is required.
Mhm.
So if I obtain a lot of knowledge, a lot is required from me. If I take this learning approach, I'm going to learn some things, but then I have to do something with that knowledge. I have to do something about That's why it's easy for parents sometimes, certain parents, not all, to not want to know about their child's sexuality or their preferences, or it's easy for them to not even talk about sex with their child because they don't want to know. Well, why you don't want to know? What's scary about it? I don't get it. I mean, we all encountered. I don't understand. Why is it, this thing? What's wrong with knowing? Because you have to do something about it. What do you have to do? You have to find a way to now love your child in a way that they feel affirmed. And are you willing to do that? Or is it all about your ego? You don't feel like doing it because you feel you don't have to because you're this adult, you're this parent. Got to be more careful. I probably done took a whole nother turn here, but when it comes to self-actualization, to answer your question, to rewrap all this, and my relationships, if I have an understanding of self and I accept myself and I love and I respect and I have all these attributes towards self, healthy ones, then it will automatically come with the relationships I encounter. And it is that self actualization that will protect me and prevent me from having toxic relationships because of the love I have for myself. Even with my children, I'm not going to accept toxic behavior because I don't do that. Okay. I don't have that type of love. So you disrespecting me is not allowed. It's not tolerated. It's not even an option.
Mhm.
I teach, I teach people how to treat me. When I walk into a room, I demand respect. When I walk into any environment, I demand love. It's not an option for anyone to love me. It's not an option for anybody to respect me. It is a requirement.
Mhm.
And if you can't live up to that requirement, then you probably need to leave the room. But I won't. And that's just what it is because it was a requirement for me. I no longer made loving me an option. I made it a requirement. I
Mhm.
no longer made respect for me an option. I made it a requirement. I didn't make these toxic things. It wasn't an option to live a healthy life. It was a requirement. So if I am engaging any energy exchange with you, any space with you, it is a requirement for you to respect, love, and treat me in a healthy way.
Mhm.
And if you can't do that, be silent, because that's respectful to me. You're not saying nothing at all.
Mhm.
It's better than you coming out of your mouth disrespectful or any way. I'd rather you just be quiet or not be bothered with me. Be respectful from afar. But if you're going to exchange any type of communication space with me, it's just a requirement. It's not an expectation. I don't expect you to do anything. I require you to do it
Mhm.
because it's a requirement for me. So all the way down to my children, from my spouse to my children to my family relationships between my parents now, it's not about respect. It's not an option for parents to respect their children. It's a requirement.
Mhm.
The only reason why you're making an option for you to respect your children is because you are making it an option to respect you.
Mhm.
And that's just how I see it. It's not because they're smaller than you, they're younger than you. No, they are little human beings. They're human. They deserve love, respect. I never understood people hitting their children to make them obey. What are you teaching them exactly?
Mhm. Yeah, where you're teaching to seriously limit them, right? When I
Right.
hear you speaking, I'm hearing someone who, through self-actualization, through self-love, self-forgiveness, self-acceptance, you became free. You really freed yourself from all
Exactly.
these old limitations that society puts upon us, or that we let society, interject into us. Uh, but you had mentioned words like purpose, or I think maybe even the word mission. Yet I love what you said about not necessarily conforming to somebody else's way, but creating your own way. And you watch most people, I think it's safe to say most, the majority, are conforming. They are, the term sheeple. They are just doing what they were told to do, what our parents kind of force us to do in a sense. What would you say to somebody, and you'd mentioned something like, you have a mission, like you have a purpose. There's a story from Rumi where he says a king sent a man to another country to perform one specific task. The man goes there and performs many tasks, but doesn't perform the one task. Comes back to the king later and says, I did all this great stuff for you. And the king said, yeah, but did you do the one thing I sent you to do? And the man's like, no, but I did all this other great stuff. Well, then your mission was wasted because you did all these things that weren't actually true to why you were here. what would you say to somebody who's still stuck, still conforming, hasn't stepped out of the caterpillar phase yet, to realize you can create your own thing? You have a mission and a purpose. And well, yeah, I'd just love to hear your thoughts about mission, purpose, and doing your own thing.
Yeah, so I use in the Bible it says, you have two paths. You have the one that many follow, one that's narrow. Just like society says, there's two genders, male and female. And I've always had this rebellious spirit about myself, and this is where the audacity comes in, because I didn't choose the path that many follow, nor did I choose the narrow path. I chose to create my path because I had an understanding of this. If I created my path, many won't follow, nor will the few, the chosen, will follow. Those that the divine gave the audacity to say, I don't follow this guy. It's something different, you know. I don't want to follow, everyone. I don't want to follow the few. I just want to follow this guy because if he's creating something, then I might learn something. I'm vulnerable to it. I'm willing to take what society likes to say a risk. So when it comes to living, so like another analogy I like to use, another fable, where and I'm just paraphrasing this. The king gave three people a gift. Let's just say gave this person one gift, gave this person two gifts, gave this person three gifts. Said I'll be back in 6 months. They come back. King asked the person he gave one gift to, said, what did you do with it? Oh, I buried it in my backyard. Oh yeah, okay, that's not what I wanted to happen, but okay. The person with the two, he said, what you do with it? The person said, you know what? I only came back with three gifts, but he came back with something. He had more than the two that was given. The other person who had three, he doubled it. He said, I got six gifts. So not only do I keep the three you gave me, here's three for you too.
Mm.
So when you look at life, the most wealthiest place in this world is not the banks, it's the graveyard. Because people die with their gifts. They are buried with their gifts.
Mm.
And I made the decision that I didn't want to be one of those people. I wanted to be the one who left fruit for people to enjoy. And I wanted to leave this life empty as much as possible. And I can't do that being quiet. I can't do that being scared. I can't do that conforming. I have to step out of those limitations. And I have to create a world that I can thrive and share these gifts with. I can't be a victim of the world of limitations and confirmations. I can't, because I won't be able to transform there. I have to walk into the world of transformation, because that is the only way for me to evolve. I can't evolve living living in a black and white society. I'm too colorful for that. Okay, my spirit is too colorful. So I have to live a life of transformation. So when it comes to purpose, I empower people to just be still and ask why. Why do you do the things that you do?
Mm.
Why do you eat the foods that you eat? Oh, because it's part of our culture. Well, the key word in culture is cult. Okay. That's not. And you can find out what cult means. Okay. I'm just saying, great people, ask why. Why do you eat these certain foods? Why do you act this way? Or why do you engage in these traditions? Just ask why. And when you ask yourself, why do I celebrate Christmas every December 25th? I'm just throwing that out there. And oh, well, because it's a national holiday. Okay, well, what made it a national holiday? What really? Oh, well, that was the day Jesus was born. According to what source? The Holy Bible. Oh, one source? That's it? There's nothing else that validates that? Ask questions. You say, you find the answer when you ask the right question. If you don't know how to, if you're not inquisitive, then you will never learn more about you. You will know if you're conforming based on the responses you get. Well, I do this because I'm supposed to do it. No, you're not. No, that's not a good answer
Mhm.
for me. No, I'm not supposed to do anything. If I'm supposed to do anything, is be me. I'm supposed to be me.
Mhm.
I'm supposed to, excuse me, um, live a life of luxury. That's what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm supposed to be educating myself, elevating, enlightening others, including me, empowering myself and other people. That's what I'm supposed to be doing. But I'm not supposed to be doing something just because. I'm not supposed to work from 9 to 5, or I'm not supposed to go to college because that's what my parents desire to do, or because that is what society says it's the only way for me to be successful. No, for me to be successful is for me to sit down, get a pen, and write down what am I good at. If I'm good at drawing pictures and creating art, then that's what I'm going to pursue. That's a gift. That goes back to the God. That's a gift. What are you going to do with that gift?
Mhm.
All gifts are not meant to go through the universities. Okay? So don't beat yourself up if you're not college prep, if you're not college oriented.
Mhm.
You don't have to get an education from an institution. The key word is institution, and we know prisons are institutions. I'm just saying. Okay? I have achieved this massive amount of education, but what have I learned? I learned more from life.
Mhm.
Life is what taught me how to love myself. I learned the valuable things, the quality things, things that are gonna allow me to exist, are gonna allow me to empower and enlighten from life experiences, not from the books that the educational institutions provided for me. I didn't. I had to learn self love from experience. I had to learn respect from experience. I can have a 3.9, but what good does it serve me if I don't have a self love or a self respect? If
Mhm.
I don't know how to, you go to school all this whole time and you're not taught how to show compassion towards yourself. That's crazy. That's ludicrous, and I have to pay for this. Like, what is this all about? So just really sitting down and saying, why is all this happening? Why do I need to go to college? Why is this educational system here? Is it really meant for me to thrive, or is it meant for me to be in debt?
Mhm.
Is it a way to control me? Is it a way for society to profit off of me? That's what we need to be asking. We don't need to just hurry up. Oh, I need to go to college right out of high school because that's what I'm supposed to do. No. And you have people beating themselves up and going through mental anguish and emotional distress because they're not going to college at 18 and they're going at 45. Or they're scared to go because they're 45 years old and they desire to pursue this education and they're rejecting themselves because they're not the age.
Mhm.
So you have to ask yourself, why is society creating this? And it's, and the hard truth is a hard it's, the truth is a hard pill to swallow to some, and it might be affirming to many because people thought this, but when you're in this mindset of playing it safe,
Mhm.
and when you get this knowledge, you now have to do something about it, and people are scared to know certain things, so they just they don't seek it out. They're not seekers. In order to live a prosperous and a fruitful life, great people, you have to do three things. You have to seek the truth, you have to seek it out, you have to speak about it, and you have to be a servant of it.
Mhm.
Three things. That's why when I say I am the truth seeker, speaker, and servant,
Mhm.
because that is who I am. And my education does not have to be sought after in from an institution. It could be sought after from life experiences. And if I want to, just get an honorary doctorate. I was researching the other day the difference between an honorary doctorate or these honorary degrees. They downplay it. Oh, they're not real degrees, but why though? Because if a kid gets A's and B's in school, you're calling them an honor student. They're being glorified. But when I get an honorary doctorate, it's not valued. Why is that? Oh, because I didn't pay for it. So everything that is earned has to be paid for, though. But why is that? Because when you pay, you're paying them.
Mm-hmm.
But these are questions you ask. Why is an honorary doctorate not valued? You're being honored from society. And then they're wondering why society is the way it is when we have mental health professionals, or we have professionals who's out here who's serving the inner city population, or people with problems or things like that, and they don't have a solution because they earned their degree from a 3.9. They paid for theirs. They weren't honored. I'd rather have somebody who's out here in the community doing the work for a certain amount of years, has personal experience, and literally devoting their time, their free time, to make a change, to create social change, than somebody who chooses to take out a loan, get a high GPA, and I have to pay to serve me.
Mm-hmm.
And then when they're exhausted or they're overwhelmed, they're not serving me at the capacity that they should be serving me, compared to somebody who's given their free time and their free, who's passionate about it, despite the degrees, and they're being honored for it.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Maya Angelou, Nelson Mandela, Martin Luther King, the list goes on. These are people who, yes, Dr. Martin Luther King went to school, of course, we know that, but he still put in that work. Dr. Maya Angelou put in that work. She spoke her truth, and the world listened, and they were inspired, and she was honored. So you don't have to pay for everything. You could get an honorary bachelor's, you could get an honorary master's, you could get an honorary doctorate. If you're going to pay for something, make sure it's something that's in alignment with you. It is something that can elevate you and empower you. There is no reason, but we're not going to ask these questions. There's no reason why you paid for something and you're not even working in that field. You're not even being compensated enough to pay the debt off. Why do you even have to pay to be educated? That's the question. If society really wants you to do great and be great in this world, why do you have to pay for this higher education? I don't get that. Got to be more careful. If you ask me, if you have a passion to want to learn, you should not have to pay for that passion. My passion, I didn't have to pay for. My passion is to empower people. God didn't give me a bill. God didn't give me a bill. He gave me a gift. He gave me the gift of voice. I didn't have to pay for that gift. I had to find it, though. I had to seek it out. And I had to go through certain obstacles. I had to go through certain experiences, I should say, in order to find that gift. When Christmas happens, right, and the tree is full of presents, what are you doing? You're finding the gift with your name on it, right? And then when you find that gift, you're opening it up. And then what do? You play with the gift. Same thing with life. You find your gift. You find the gifts with your name on it. That's buried inside of you. That's where that internal, relationship is built from, that energy. You get to learn your inner God. Your inner God will tell you what your gifts are. You take those gifts and then you while you're finding your gifts, you're building this omnipotence, you're building this strength, this power within self, and you're learning to be disciplined. Why? Because you're constantly repeating this behavior of seeking your truth and seeking your gifts. So you're building discipline along the way, and you're building dominance because you're gaining omnipotence. And when you find this gift, then you say, okay, now you can go to God and say, bless me. Or can you help me create this blessing? But I'm not going to sit here and pray to God to help me with my finances, or help me with this, or God, please do this when I'm in a time of need. No, God can't help the needy. Okay? He helps those who meet him halfway. And that's just what it is. I try not to say him because God is not gendered, but you get my point. You have to, in order to be resourceful, you have to be of source. So you have to go to source. God is source. He's the almighty source. But in order for you to be resourceful, you have to work with source. Where do I need to be to work with source effectively and efficiently. I can't be a beggar and just ask for something and not do nothing and just wait for. No, that's not fair to the divine. How
Mm.
dare you come to me? That's disrespectful if you ask me. If you're coming to me and you're asking me to invest in your business and I have not seen you invest in your own business, how dare you?
Mhm. Yeah.
Like, you look at it like that. So when it comes to your purpose, when it comes to finding, when it comes to how do I release myself from this conforming way of being, you have to give yourself the due diligence, okay, and stop being an injustice to yourself and justify yourself. Give yourself the due diligence. Like, you know what? This world, I've been living this world for 45 years, 50 years, however old you are, and these are my outcomes. Just start out with that. Get a pen, get a book, get a pad, get that from the Family Dollar, 80 cents. Okay? Get yourself a pen and really say, you know what, for X amount of years of my life, this is what I've experienced. And these are the experiences that I am not happy with. Okay, well, why aren't you happy with it? What led to these experiences? Well, mommy and daddy said I had to obey. Okay, I had to obey them. Then when I went to school, they told me I had to obey the teachers. And then when I stepped outside of the house, they told me I had to obey society rules. So you've been raised and programmed to be a robot, to obey, obey, obey. They didn't ask you what did you think,
Mm.
how did you feel about this. They didn't allow you to exercise your ingeniousness, your mental capacity, your feelings. They didn't allow those two things to connect. So you constantly shut them down all the way from the day you were born up until the day you were enlightened,
Mm.
whichever age that is. I was fortunate to be enlightened at the age of 30. That's not the case with some people. But that doesn't mean that you still don't desire to and deserve to explore the remainings of your life after listening to this recording, what it is your heart's desire. So you sit down and you ask yourself, what is it that's not creating a happy outcome? Oh, I'm not happy with my finances. Okay, well, why? What behaviors have you exhibited, or what are you doing that's creating this financial distress?
Mhm.
These burdens. I'm not happy with my weight. Okay, well, what are you doing that's contributing to this unhealthy behavior? I'm not happy with my education, or I want to do this or fulfill, or I want to be a great dancer. Okay, well, what are you doing about it? Are you joining dance classes? Are you reading about the great dancers, the legendary dancers in this world? Are you reading about them and what they went through and what they did and things? Are you educating yourself on your craft, on your passion, on your gift? Educate yourself on your gift. Don't educate yourself on, algebra if it don't align with your gift.
Mhm.
Don't waste your time. Don't cause that distress upon yourself because you're trying to meet society's expectations. Society's expectations is just that. It has nothing to do with me.
Mm.
Because society's expectations is not listed. One of the expectations is not Bryson's authenticity or Dr. Scholar Lee's authenticity. That's not on the expectation.
Mm.
Because if I'm authentic, then what's going to happen? They can't profit off of that. They can't control that. Now you're freeing yourself. The number one cause of death has been your truth,
Mm.
has been authenticity. People have died because they were being authentic, all the way down from Jesus all the way up. They were because they were authentic. They didn't conform.
Mhm.
Because there's no way you're conforming and you're still being targeted. But if you're, true to you and you have the audacity to enlighten people of this ingenious experience, this liberation that you're experiencing, all right, this heaven sent, this you're experiencing heaven on earth, not when you die, okay? You're experiencing it, then oh no, we have to quiet that down. That's not, no, we don't want people to know about other genders. What are you talking about? No, we're too busy making money off boy and girl clothes, boy and girl toys, boy and girl colors. We're making money off this binary way of being. So what are you talking about? There's other genders or gender expansive and all that other stuff. No, you can't talk about that because then, no, because the religion says this. And then if this is true, then where does that leave me with my religion? Where does that leave me with how I was brought up? The world feels deceived and they're angry about that, and you're triggering something that they don't want to know, because if they know, they're going to have to do something about it, and that's going to trigger another question. Well, if there's multiple genders, then why was I taught these two? Am I a man because I chose to be a man, or am I a man because that's what society said I was? That's a whole different question. And if I want to explore, if I choose to be a man, then I need to redefine what masculinity is to me. I don't have to be strong and this powerful guy with a toolkit. I could cook dinner for my wife. I could wash dishes for my wife. I could clean the house for my wife. I could iron my own clothes. I could cook for my wife. I could tap into my divine femininity and get my nails done and get my feet done and take care of myself and be well groomed. There's nothing emasculating about that. It's just you loving on you. Why does everything have to be gendered? Why does everything have to be dual? Have to be separated? Your divine masculine and divine femininity is all in one. God is not gendered. God is just one. There's not one or the other. There's no what have but when you're raised to separate, conquer, and divide instead of you unify, then it's just a lot of things you got to put into perspective and things. So I say all that to say to empower you to just sit down and be inquisitive in life, ask questions, and what is your initial response? That is your consciousness. That is your subconsciousness telling you what it is. If you put your hand over your heart and you tell yourself you love you, how does that make you feel? Is your ego telling you no, you don't love you because this and this and that, or are you feeling some sense of just being relieved? Are you feeling just at ease instead of dis-ease? you know, that's what life is like. Life is not about being tense, stressed, conflicted. The make conflicted, con. In the English language, what does con mean? Against. So nobody want to be having nothing con, okay? We don't need contracts because they have the ability to go against us. We don't need to be conversating because that conversation has the ability to go against us. We don't want to have conflicts because what? Internally, you're being, internal conflict. You're having something going against your internal being. No, we need to start having compacts because calm means what? With. So you want to be with oneself. You don't want to be against oneself. Okay? Start creating your own terms. Have proversations, if that's the case, because those are good conversations. Or, just switch it up. And it's okay. Because who created this term? Who put the definition behind it? And who gave them the authority to do so? What did that person do? So who's Webster? What did he do in his life to, for the world to have to use this dictionary as a source? So yeah, that's just. I hope I answered your question, and
I think you did, and you did, and a lot more. And it's good.
Yeah.
At the end of the time we have left, so I would ask you for closing words, but you offered so many great words. I'm going to let our listeners just soak all that in. But I will ask you to wrap it up with how people could learn more about you, website or contact info.
Absolutely, you can find me on my website, drscholarly.com. Social media platforms is at Dr. Scholarly. I'm on all of them: Twitter, YouTube. Actually, my YouTube channel is the Dr. Scholarly Experience. And you can find me on YouTube there. Podcast is the Dr. Scholarly Experience. What else here? LinkedIn, Dr. Scholarly. Instagram, Dr. Scholarly. Facebook, Dr. Scholarly. So all the rest is Dr. Scholarly. In fact, if you just Google Dr. Scholarly, I'm sure some of my resources will pop up. And I thank you in advance for your support, for your time, and for subscribing to any of my platforms. and make sure you share this video so the rest of the world can be enlightened. Don't be selfish with the content. Okay. And thank
Nice.
you so much, Matthew, for having me on here. I enjoy our conversations per usual.
Yeah, of course. I love being in your podcast. It's always a pleasure to speak and to listen to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll be sure our team puts all your contact info in the description below the video. So wonderful. Thank you so much for being here. As you were talking, I was thinking about Gandhi saying, they asked him, "What is your message?" He said, "My life is my message." And I haven't really thought about that in relationship to another person, except now listening to you is like, your life is your message. So keep doing what you're doing. It's awesome. I'm so glad you were on the show. And I
Thank
look
you.
forward to future collaboration with you. Thank you so much.
Like I always say, great people continue to be great because you are already great. So you continue to be great. Be bold and always, always be you. Peace.
Amen. All right. Peace. Great. Thanks so much.